And away we go. It is the Nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken right here on BearcatJournal.com, www.galacticfriedchicken.com. Go to the website, get the app. Go to the app. They will deliver right to your front door pretty much anywhere inside the 275 loop, or head down to Dayton, Kentucky. Tell them to pump it up Wednesday through Sunday, lunch and dinner. Save yourself 15% off of your order. Is everybody ready for a blast from the past? Yes? All right, here we go. Hi, Aaron. Hey!
Oh, I did not see that coming. He brought his own confetti.
Welcome back to the network. It's been a long time. We missed him dearly. We actually spent about 15 minutes in the pre-show lobby just catching back up. But it's good to see his smiling face. National reporter extraordinaire from theathletic.com, not the Atlantic, theathletic.com, Justin Williams. Hi, buddy.
What's up? What's up, guys?
Can we call him a Paul Feinbaum regular now?
Yeah, regular on Paul Feinbaum.
Just twice. I don't know if regular counts.
More than once. You're a recurring guest on Paul Feinbaum, Justin. Like
once is an accident, twice is a friend. Right? Yeah.
You're a word guy. You have recurred as a guest on the Paul Feinbaum show.
Like, grammatically, I suppose you're correct there.
I mean, it's not some of the words you purposely put in articles that people have to look up in the dictionary to find out what they mean. But I think I did it right there. I think I helped.
Did good. It was good. Aaron was very excited. He was just venting to me about how much he hated Chad while Chad was just right there, in the studio listening to it. So
it's not entirely true.
It's also not secret.
Not entirely untrue.
It's also not secret. Everybody
goes both ways. We have a love-hate relationship. I love Chad and he hates me. It's fine.
Isn't that what happens with most shows, like where the hosts have been together? Like, we're over 2 years now that we've been doing this. Like, they hate each other.
Yeah, so, which one of you's Mike? Which one's the Mad Dog?
Mike and the Mad Dog, Francesa and the Mad Dog. So I think we know, Justin. I think we know. So Justin, we'll talk Bearcats in a little bit, but you did an article today, released an article today. I'm sure it took a little bit more reporting than just this afternoon. Touching on something that has been a regular topic over the 2 years that we have done this show. A lot of interesting stuff. You had some sources on the record, some sources off the record that you talked to. But ultimately, it gets to a point that we have been making here for a while now. Like, are we getting to the place in time where there's just a realization that everything on the NCAA rulebooks is actually illegal? And the NCAA is starting to open their eyes to that and go, oh, man, like, we're losing all these court cases. The Supreme Court that hates each other agrees that we suck. Like, what it comes down to is 4 or 5 weeks ago, whatever, the new NCAA president brought up kind of out of the blue, dropped a bombshell on everybody of a new potential for a new subdivision where they paid the players. And your reporting goes into a lot of that. Let the listeners know, and then, how they can find the article.
Yeah, it's at theathletic.com. Subscribe, please.
No, you were supposed to do that after.
Come back, Bearcats fans. No, so honestly, the article started because my editor, the assignment was like, give us an explainer on this subdivision, because the NCAA president kind of dropped it out of nowhere to the point where, like, even Greg Sankey, who is all-knowing power for Oz,
the actual NCAA president,
correct, he's like, I didn't know this was coming. So, like, you knew it was really kind of out of nowhere if that was the case. And so there just wasn't a lot of in the weeds stuff about the subdivisions. My editor's like, call around. We would like to do some, kind of an explainer on what all this means in simple terms. And it became pretty quickly evident from talking to people that the subdivision, while, you can talk about the specifics of it and what it might mean, it was really the NCAA, like, reacting to, trying to get out in front of, be proactive against all of these legal battles that they're simultaneously facing in court in various stages. One which you wrote about was, which Cincinnati fans know very well, is the state of Ohio versus NCAA that got the second time transfers. Like, that's an example of one of these things. There's things like the House case, and the Hubbard case. So, like, people maybe have heard of some of these. Carter case is another one that came out last month. If you haven't heard of it, that's okay, because they're all kind of similar and kind of confusing. And that was what the article basically became, which is write about some of these other legal cases that the NCAA is up against that, could have serious implications. One of them, I believe, is the House case. Like, if things go a certain way, like, could potentially be talking about the NCAA having to declare bankruptcy. Not sure if that's the way it's actually going to end up, but like, that is one possible outcome from one of those cases. And a lot of them are being tried in the same case where the Alston case was tried, in the same court as the Alston case, as the O'Bannon case a couple years ago. So there's like reason to believe that this might not go well for the NCAA. And the subdivision proposal that Charlie Baker put out was basically the NCAA's response to this. All right, we're getting crushed in court, and Congress wants us to show that we're doing something and not just twiddling our thumbs, and begging them for an antitrust exemption. And so I think there's kind of maybe two ways to look at the subdivision, which is what I kind of wrote at the end, which is you can look at it in a more complimentary light, which is like, hey, the NCAA, who for years under Mark Emmert just sat back and did nothing and lost in court and fought really hard to keep losing in court. Now, at least Charlie Baker's put something together. Maybe it's a little rushed. Maybe it's vague on details. Maybe nobody knew it was coming, but he put something together and threw it out there. And then the more cynical.
Hold on.
Go for it.
You called that a let me quote you properly.
All this legal jargon in my athletic subscription. Ugh.
Salad of congressional buzzwords.
That would be the more cynical take, yes. Which is
I'm setting you up. The salad. Let's talk about the salad of buzzwords.
So the NCAA wants an antitrust exemption, and without getting into the weeds of that, because people's eyes could glaze over, if the NCAA were to get an antitrust exemption, it would basically mean that they could keep doing things where the athletes wouldn't be employees. So they could operate. Yes, the athletes could, make earnings on NIL and things like this, but it would allow them to kind of, in a way, hold on to that amateurism model that they so desperately want to hold on to.
It would essentially prevent the athletes from unionizing and becoming like a labor union and working against them.
Right. Collectively bargaining and, setting salaries and contracts and benefits and all that kind of stuff. So if the NCAA were able to get that from Congress, that would be a big win for them. That seems unlikely, but it also feels like this was a kind of a Hail Mary attempt of like, look, Congress, we do have a plan. We have something we're going to do. Just give us that antitrust exemption and we'll make it all happen.
I came up with it 10 minutes ago and I haven't told anybody. Right. We have a plan.
Yes. And so I don't think, both of those viewpoints are necessarily mutually exclusive. Like, I think there's probably pieces of both in there, but it became very quickly evident when I started calling around, like, you can't write about this subdivision proposal without writing about all the other legal battles that the NCAA is facing on multiple fronts. And so far have not done very well in.
No, don't say have not done. Have they won? Do they have a dub?
That's a good question. What would be the last court case? Because
there was the last dub the NCAA got.
One of the cases in there, and I can't even remember exactly which one. But they it got it got sent to a new court, an interlocutory hearing, whatever that means. And the new court was like, oh, yeah, actually, no, what we said wrong previously in the NCAA's kind of benefit was actually we disagree with that now. We're changing that.
And what did you
so
just call me?
That's one that could potentially go to the Supreme Court. Again, we're talking about the courts and Congress and the NCAA, so nothing's going to happen in a fast, efficient manner.
Right.
But yeah, you are correct. Stemming back to like the O'Bannon and the Alston case, which, as you mentioned, they lost 9-0 to the Supreme Court. It has not been a good few years, decade plus for the NCAA on the legal front.
Skins could kill Aaron. It could go to the Supreme Court, and it probably wouldn't be 9-0 that he did it. That's how bad the NCAA rulebook is.
I was surprised that looking through the list of all of the cases that you're going through, that Title IX didn't come up until the very last one. And as we're talking about most of these cases having to do with men's sports and women's sports really not coming up in any of these court cases, that Title IX is kind of an afterthought in all of this.
Yeah, and the one that the one that it's really big in is it's actually not even against the NCAA, it's against the University of Oregon, where like the University of Oregon women's beach volleyball team, I think like the club rowing team basically brought some Title IX complaints. And that was another thing. The Title IX was a big part of the subdivision proposal that Charlie Baker put forward, because there was some talk about NIL getting rolled up in-house within these athletic departments. Right now, NIL payments are not beholden to Title IX. So if you bring NIL payments in-house to an athletic department, now are they beholden to Title IX? And like a lot of times when I ask people, that, they were like that, and that's kind of the whole point. Is the subdivision was very vague; it didn't have these details. But yeah, there's at some point, I don't know where it'll kind of fall in the legal battles that they're facing, but Title IX's gonna come into play here, and yeah, that's gonna be something that they have to figure out. And again, I think so far all of the suggestions or details have been left very vague, because the truth is no one really has an answer.
I just wonder if the only loophole out of this is for football, if they did go independent where they are no longer under the NCAA umbrella, if that's how you make Title IX work, where you have those 85 scholarships not count towards your Title IX and all of those parameters.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, because one person I talked to with the subdivision proposal, they basically said if it's, whatever the minimum they agreed to, 30,000 for half-year athletes, it's beholden to Title IX. You're just going to see a lot of sports, probably men's sports, start getting cut. Like men's baseball, if the subdivision proposal happens, a lot of places are going to cut men's baseball because it doesn't make money and it's a decent sized roster. So you're going to have like football, men's basketball, and then.
Well, to be fair, they only have 12 scholarships, right, in baseball?
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're trying to basically minimize the amount of scholarships you have, you're basically going to have men's basketball and football, and then like, how many other men's sports are these schools actually going to keep if they're having to put forth minimums to this? And so, like, is that good for the NCAA that you're cutting men's sports and essentially like blaming women's sports because of it, just so you can meet these threshold minimums? So, but again, these are all things that there aren't really answers to yet, and at some point they're going to have to actually sit down and hash this out, whether it's in court or a subdivision or whatever.
It doesn't sound like a lot of fun, and I think they know. I think like the people in charge now at the NCAA are actually looking at things for the first time and going, uh-oh. Like, we have painted ourselves into a very small corner, and I don't know that there's a path out. I've said this a couple times over the past month or so, Justin. Like, forever, I've been like, the NCAA is not going anywhere, because if the NCAA goes somewhere, you just have to replace it with another one. There has to be a governing body. Somebody has to be in charge. And the NCAA going away doesn't change anything, except now I'm starting to realize what it changes is you get to start over with a new rule book. You get to start over with a bunch of rules that have been compiled over time in a world that doesn't exist anymore. And the NCAA either has to start over, or somebody else has to come in and be the new thing. I don't know that there's any other fix.
No, you're right. And that's like, I think I wrote it in the piece, like the same organization that quote unquote governs Alabama football also governs Division III
Thomas More College.
Yeah, exactly.
Cross country.
That's how you open the piece. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes zero sense. And, that's not the NCAA's fault in a sense, but it's like, where this has gotten to in college sports is not at all where we started at. Now, you're right. Like, the question then becomes, all right, if there was some breakaway from football, who runs that? Who's going to get in a room and everyone that, these people that are in charge of these programs are all going to agree and hash something out? That seems unlikely. But it also, that makes more sense than having the NCAA govern Division III programs across the country and big time college football. So I don't know. The other thing is, fans aren't going to like it either. And I say that as someone I'm a fan, and I don't think it's fair that players don't get to make money or all the kind of things that are put against them. But then when you start getting into the way it looks different, like that's going to be an adjustment for fans too. And so I think that's what has come out of a lot of this is like, yeah, there are clearly changes that need to be made, but that also probably means there's going to be changes that are made that a lot of people don't like, but don't like and aren't going to be happy with, but they need to be made to do what's right.
I'm curious now because, you left the house a few months ago and, you're living somewhere else now. You moved to a big new town. Everything's fancy. NIL, how much are you hearing? Because I'm hearing it quite a bit. Like there are places around the country where they have an older donor base, a donor base that's kind of set in their ways on what college, oftentimes what people don't realize, oftentimes a lot of these huge donors played college sports 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they are not bought in on this. So a lot of the places that are struggling, one of the refrains you constantly hear is like, we are having a hard time getting the top of our donor base to buy in on, we need, instead of the money you were giving us for scholarships and
buildings,
facility upgrades and whatnot, we're going to need that now to pay the players. And those people are going, wait, whoa. Like a building, it's right there.
Put your name on it.
Right. 2 years from now, that guy I paid $1.5 million is making $1 million somewhere else after he entered the transfer portal for the second time.
Right. No, you're right. And I think there are some, a lot of places are doing it differently. And I think there's some places that have maybe found a more structured or just beneficial way for them to handle NIL. But I don't think anyone's like, I'm loving this. Like, I love this is the way it's going. I don't, even the places that seem to have like a good plan or have it figured out. I don't think anyone is really happy with the way this has gone. But I also don't think anyone is like, yeah, let's give this to the athletic departments and roll this up in-house, whatever that would look like. I don't know that anyone that's actually involved in this feels like that's the right decision either. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I think it's an issue that everyone just assumed, all right, the places that were either doing this before under the table or are the richest universities are like, they're just gonna, pop up tents and they're gonna be great at it. And it's not that simple for all the reasons you pointed out. And I think a lot of places that people expected would be like, whether it's NIL or not, look at Georgia. Like Georgia's losing guys that they want to keep to the transfer portal, and maybe that's NIL in some cases, maybe that's just wanting more playing time or however it works. But I think when all this started, people just assumed like Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, those places are going to clean up and the gap's going to get bigger. So in some ways maybe it's good, but I also just don't think it's been beneficial because there's no guardrails. The places that are trying to do it correctly or are trying to be compliant, like a lot of times it changes month to month, or somebody does something and somebody says, hey, we're not supposed to be allowed to do that, it's not compliant. The NCAA is like, well, okay, all right.
Sure,
except two-time transfers, they're real strict on those.
Well, but again, we've talked about a million times why, Aaron. The coaches and everybody agreed that they didn't want two-time transfers in the sport. So the NCAA was like, all right, everybody's on our side. Now we put our foot down. And then the lawyers were like, well, you have to create some wiggle room because if not, they're going to sue your ass off.
Right.
So they created some wiggle room, and they got their ass sued off even worse than if they wouldn't have created the wiggle room in the first place. It's
That's
just the phenomenal leadership at the NCAA.
Yeah, some of these lawsuits now are like, oh, we instituted Alston payments. Like, all right, look, yeah, we can give you money for these things, and now it's like, oh, well, I was in college 4 years ago and I didn't get any Alston payments, so now we're gonna sue your ass and you're gonna back pay us all. So the NCAA is probably like, oh my god.
For everyone that's ever spent 1 second in the NCAA ever.
This is what we've talked about at length, though, Chad, is the fact that they could have been proactive instead of digging their feet in so damn hard.
Yeah, they had no interest in being.
And that was one of the quotes in the piece, which is like, the reason they're in this position is because they did absolutely nothing to help themselves or to better the situation for 20, 30 years. And so, sure, maybe there's some of the stuff that they're like, man, we're getting crushed. This seems unfair. Well, congratulations. That's what you get. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I learned about watching you, all right? Big 12 basketball real quick for 1 second. How much basketball have you gotten to live and breathe now that you are one of the preeminent Big 12 media members in the country?
Not nearly as much as I would like. I'm hoping after next Monday when football's kind of done. Not that I'm looking forward to football being done, but I think that'll give me a chance to hopefully watch some more basketball. But I've done my best to try and keep tabs. Seems like the Big 12 is still good. Is what
I have a trivia question for you.
Oh gosh.
Of the top 15 toughest remaining strength of schedules in the country, top 15 toughest remaining strength of schedules in the country, how many are Big 12 teams?
10.
14. And it's not number 15. The top 14 remaining strength of schedules in the country are all Big 12 teams.
All of them.
Big 12 still good. I was right.
Nailed it.
My expert opinion. Big 12 still good.
That's why we had you on.
That's right. That's right.
I have a hard time even fathoming that.
Yeah, it'll be very. Where is Cincinnati part of that?
Yeah,
well, they're seventh. Yeah, it's all four. There's 14.
Oh, there's 14. There's 14. I'm already thinking next year when
1 through 14. They have the top 14 in the country remaining strength of schedules.
Who's 15?
I don't know.
Okay,
that was Dave's first question as well.
Yeah, I don't know who's 15, but
this
they have all of them.
We talked about this a lot last year when I was still seeing you guys on the reg, but like
when you liked us,
since Cincinnati is where they want to be, right? They're in a better spot. At some point in like 3, 4, 5 weeks, people are going to be just dying for a Tuesday night USF home ticket at Fifth Third Arena. Yeah. Like it's good. It's gonna be a slog for sure, even for the good teams.
Where is Temple?
Like even for the incumbent teams that have been doing this for a few years, like I'm interested to see how this goes for Houston, because I think Houston's really good, but I don't think
they're as good as they've been.
It's just different. Like we saw it with football. It's just a different beast. It doesn't mean they won't be good. It doesn't mean Cincinnati won't be good in a couple years, but that grind is just a different animal than what they're used to.
I would have been more interested in the Jarris Walker Houston team in this league than this iteration, but
there's no Jarris Walker on that current Houston roster. But optimistic for the Bearcats Saturday night, 10 p.m. One of the coldest teams in the country, BYU.
In Provo, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Didn't
18,978 screaming Mormons
at altitude.
Yeah.
It'll be and then what? Texas is after that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The first 3 road games, right?
No.
BYU, Baylor, Big Monday, Kansas.
Aaron with the schedule pull up. There you go. Man.
Kansas is 6. Yeah, those first 6 are welcome to the league Cincinnati.
You're like, what? I guess TCU is like quote unquote the worst team of that group,
and they're in the top 30 in almost every metric. Yeah,
right.
Most of them, right? Top 30, top 25, top 30. Yeah, that's the easy game.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're gonna learn quite a bit about this Bearcats group
Real quick,
probably by mid-January here.
Yeah. The crazy thing is the schedule lightens considerably over the final 12, as much as this league can lighten considerably. But you got 6 top 40 teams. The best, what Dave argued today, those are the best 3 teams right now in the league. BYU, Baylor, Kansas. Those are your 3 road games.
Yeah. That's
good
fair.
luck, buddy.
And I mean, look, I will not claim to have watched or followed them as closely as you. I think they're a decent team. They've obviously had moments.
I don't think it's gelled yet, but I think there's the puzzle should fit together.
Right. And so if you can stay healthy, then maybe by the time you get to that end of the season and it lightens up a little bit, like, you know, maybe you can go on a little run at the end of the season. But I just, you know, this was my fear heading into football season for them. And again, for all those teams, I think it's such a transition that first season going through that slog of conference play that I think if any successes, honestly, I think would be impressive ones, because I think it's going to be even tougher in basketball than it was in football.
Yeah. All right. Well, we promise not to keep you long. Aaron, you got anything else?
I love you, Justin.
I love you guys.
We miss you.
I know. You guys have me back on anytime.
This was last minute. Like, hey, Justin, you want to come on tonight and talk about your article? Okay, see you in 5 minutes. So we appreciate the short notice. I don't usually like to do that, but I figured I'd like getting you out of doing some dishes.
You caught me at a good time. I was just finishing walking the dog, so
not in between bottles this time.
No.
All right. Well, we appreciate you, brother. It's great to see you, and we will catch up soon. That is the Nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken, right here on BearcatJournal.com.
See ya!